Your source for all things Texas Tech. This is the Ask Level Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of the Ask Level Podcast alongside Chris Level, in spirit at least. I'm Chois Woodman. This podcast brought to you, as always, by our friends at Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
Chris joins us from Utah today. And first, I got to ask, why the heck are you sitting here doing a podcast with me when you could be out on the snowy slopes and there's the best skiing in America all around you right now.
Well, I think that's about 45 minutes away,
Yeah.
or so. I'm in basically like on the BYU campus,
Okay.
was where I am as you talk to me. We got here on Sunday afternoon, and so it's going to end up being a lengthy trip. And I know everybody back home dealing with some cold temperatures, but it's cold here too, and there's a reason that they call it the mountain time zone too. So I'm surrounded by the mountains, which is great, easy on the eyes and snow capped and all the stuff. So might even hike up to that Y on the side of the mountain at some point. So anyway, we shall see.
Yeah, hike the Y. I doubt you're going to do that this go round, but we'll see. It is a beautiful campus, as we saw in football a couple of years ago.
Why
And
do you doubt me? Why are you casting aspersions that I just said that I might? I've got all day before the game, and you're totally. I mean, I
touche.
just kind of threw that out there, and you're just like, it's not going to happen. But
You know
okay,
what? I got to have more faith in my partner. My bad.
I
You
know that's
you
what I'm
do it.
saying.
Go for it, Level. It's a new year. I mean, whatever you want to do, get after it. But
Okay, all
hey,
right.
New Year started with a good basketball game for the Red Raiders in Utah. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about, of course, some coaching type of stuff with Texas Tech football. A couple of questions on that front, but we'll be basketball heavy because that's why you're there. First trip was to Salt Lake City. Your first game in that building, and then you'll have your first game, depending when you're listening. May have already played, but first game in the Marriott Center against a BYU team. So,
And Woodman, you should know this. You should know this.
oh,
It's it's the Marriott Center.
my bad, my bad.
Yeah, you were
I know.
you had your wrist slapped like I did a year ago. We don't have to worry about that anymore. But yeah, that's we had a sponsorship on the football broadcast that was
Yeah.
presented by Marriott, which is all I've ever called it, and
Hmm.
it's all anybody that I know has ever called it.
Yep.
And we got told it's Marriott, and I'm thinking like, well, golly. And now they're not a sponsor anymore. By the time that this was a national thing. It had nothing to do with us.
Sure.
But
Sure. Sure.
my mind was blown. I'm like, you're gonna have to spend a lot of money to try to train everybody out there. What it's really called instead of what everybody actually calls it. But yeah, we've gone from one Marriott in downtown Salt Lake to another one in Provo, and then we're playing at the Marriott Center on a Tuesday night, which they're expected to be 18,000 people in attendance. So it ought to be a bit spicy.
I would say so. And it seemed like the Red Raiders woke up, looked like a completely different basketball team from game one to game two in Big 12 play. Maybe slept walked a little through that UCF game, didn't wake up till too late, and seemed to have it from the start against Utah. And I think what stands out the most is one, you shot the basketball better, but you played a much, much better brand of defense in the second game against Utah.
It was a professional segue on your part. Kudos to you, sir.
Thank you.
I would have never doubted you that you would hike up to the Y on the side of the mountain here in Provo. And
Okay.
people are probably like, what are they even talking about? Yeah, we'll have to explain that.
Yeah.
I think that I think that had you had it to do over again, you probably would have wished that you were. This is going to sound weird, and again, you can't do anything about it now. You probably wish you had a brutal road game to start out conference play,
Yeah.
and just to kind of get your attention and maybe sneak up on somebody. Instead, you dealt with a UCF team that was on edge, and I don't think you were, which was frustrating. I know to the head coach, and he's trying to get that fixed, and certainly that they rebounded, but and because Kansas, they had West Virginia come in and slip up on them. And then they overcorrected and beat UCF by 50
Yeah.
on Sunday.
Yeah.
50
Yeah.
in Orlando.
Yep.
So that's the interesting thing about this, the way this league is going to go. It's all about it's going to be really difficult to try to string them together
Right.
and not go win one, lose one, all that business based on home and away and all that. But that's what you are. That's what Kansas is. That's what UCF is to this point. BYU is the same way. They blew out Arizona State and then they got hammered by Houston. But I was pleased. I thought you had a really good chance to beat Utah, but how you beat Utah
Right.
was the story. And the fact that you did it without JT Toppin doing a whole lot,
Sure.
that's the fun part, because he plays 13 minutes, he scores 11 points, but he played okay, but he was kind of a non-factor in the game for the most part, and it was all these other pieces that I thought was fun. And you just, and you'll play a similar team in BYU to the way Utah is built. A lot of length, a lot of skill, a lot of spread the floor, and just the environment will be a little bit different.
Well, is this basketball season going to be like it was for football season, the Big 12, in that it takes 75% of the year in league play gone before we actually can see a kind of a clear picture? Do you think it's going to be that way?
Um, I think with some teams, I'm ready to tell you they're either really good or really bad.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if we will necessarily get Duke. Now, again, injuries will dictate some of this as we go along, because
Of course.
it's, as we touched on, if you miss a key guy and he's just out for 2 weeks, it's going to feel like an eternity in
Yeah.
this deal.
Yeah.
Iowa State is really, really good. They may be a Final Four team. That's your next home game. Look out.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to tell you Arizona. I don't know yet. I think that's been a bit of a disappointment. I'm ready to tell you that at this point, West Virginia has been one of the biggest surprises, whereas Arizona is maybe one of the biggest disappointments.
Yeah.
I don't think TCU is very good. I don't think Oklahoma State is very good. And I don't know how much of that ultimately is going to change. I think Kansas is going to be heard from. Houston is going to be heard from. Baylor is going to be heard from. But Iowa State is the best team in this league. And I think you're going to be a top half of the league team. But I don't know, based on everything that we've seen, I don't know if you're going to get your 7, 8, 9 bids like we may have hoped. This may be a 6 or 7 bid league or something. I don't know. We'll just kind of have to see. And I'm sure I've forgotten to talk about some team like Cincinnati. I'm not buying yet. I think they were ranked and they were fun in the non-conference, and show me now that. And I haven't seen it yet from them. Kansas State, don't know yet, but I don't know if I'm buying. That's after the BYU, you come home and play Iowa State, then you go to Manhattan and play the Wildcats. So it's just going to be a. I was trying to look ahead at the schedule and just trying to look at it. And there's a week where you do play, it's in about 2 or 3 weeks, and you play Oklahoma State and TCU in the same week. And that was really the only time I looked at it and go, okay, on paper, you could theoretically put 2 together. Not that you won't win 2 or 3 in a row or whatever, but on paper, you could almost go, okay, not going to get hit over the head with a club this week, but the rest of it, man, geez.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this league is still exactly what we've experienced in the last 8 to 10 years. It's just, it's a beast. And every single night. I know it gets cliche with coaches talking about it, but it is one of those every single night things, like we saw against UCF in the first game. If you don't bring your stuff, you're gonna get beat. And specifically looking towards the BYU game in the early week here for Texas Tech playing in Provo. This is one of the better environments, definitely of the new teams in the Big 12, the eight newer teams, and maybe one of the best environments currently out of all of your teams. And you've got some really uh, good setups in the Big 12, obviously. But this BYU team itself is kind of difficult. Like it goes right into the mix with all these others. It's kind of difficult to figure out what they are because they've had some good results, but they've had some more surprising losses as well. So what do you anticipate with this particular matchup for Texas Tech?
Yeah, BYU is interesting. What's been fascinating to me is like the coming up here and you're I'm going to see these campuses and these arenas and everything in back-to-back games. And we're still all learning the
Mhm.
whole Utah BYU the Holy War, I guess is what it's called. And
Sure.
there are some very different things about these institutions and the cities that they're in and all kinds of things. But what has been interesting is that one is it is impressed upon me every time I get out and go see, especially some of these new places, how nice your stuff is at Texas Tech compared to what others have.
Right.
I um, I just can't impress upon people that you play in a really nice football stadium and you play in a really nice arena,
Yeah.
and everybody doesn't have it like that, and everybody's playing catch up. And I haven't stepped foot in the Marriott Center yet, but I believe that is very stellar and all those things. But you and I saw the BYU's football stadium. We saw, but I Utah, for one, before I get to BYU, they're going to have to commit to basketball. And I don't know if they're going to
Yeah.
do that or not. And there's a lot of pressure from down the road because
Yeah.
BYU spending, I mean, this 6'9" point guard that you're about to have to face,
Oh yeah.
Igor Demon from Russia, I think he is well paid. They've got the number one player in the country that it's either 5 million or 7 million, depending on what you listen to. He's on the way next year, and Utah just doesn't. They're just kind of. It's not Keith Van Horn not walking through that door anymore. Andre
Yeah.
Miller, all those guys that we talked about. But this is, Coach Young is the new coach at BYU,
Mhm.
and it's more of an NBA style. I think that if you try to guard everything that they've run, it's like trying to guard a phone book.
Mhm.
I mean, that's how NBA teams typically do it. There are lots of simple actions, but there's like 500 of them,
Yeah.
and so you have to have some good principles. But the defensive sense of urgency will be key here against BYU, and there's some matchup problems, but I also think that they will struggle to guard you at times too.
Mhm.
But can you hit shots like you did the other day? Elijah Hawkins makes 4 threes in this game. It was one of the best games I've seen him play.
For sure.
And he had I think 8 assists to go with it and
He
one
did.
turnover. Yeah, and Darion Williams did a lot of damage. Kerwin Walton, welcome back to the party, sir. It was fun to watch
Nice.
him. Christian Anderson. I mean, you poured them in from deep, whereas you didn't really get any clean looks against UCF, and you'll get those looks, I think, against BYU. And the decision you made against Utah early in the game, and you changed from it, was that Utah's weapon is the 3-point line.
Mhm.
And you probably gave up too many layups. I know for the head coach's
Of course. Yeah.
yeah, for his cares, probably gave up too many easy twos, all that, trying to overcompensate and worry about the 3-point line. But same premise against these guys. You want to make them take tough twos and live with it. If I think Utah actually, some of their twos were just too easy. But the 3-point line will be a weapon here. But there's some guys on their team last year, but it's more of a different It's a different style. They're coached differently with this NBA coach with his NBA background and all those things. So I don't know what we're walking into here, but it'll be a big win if you can get it. That's for sure. And they're coming off of a loss, so look out for the
Sure.
the
Swing.
overcorrection. And you're coming off of a big win, so we'll kind of see what it looks like.
Yeah, when it comes to Texas Tech, and you look back to the Utah game on this, we've talked about this a number of times over the last couple of years level, but basketball simplified is who can make more shots. I mean, who's shooting the ball better a lot of times, and you can affect it on the defensive end. But Tech shot really well against Utah. But I think what seems to be one of the biggest offensive keys with this team is the assist numbers. When you see this team share the basketball like they did,
Oh
I
yeah.
think you had 22 assists and 5 turnovers as a team against Utah, and that if you're doing that, there's hardly any team in the Big 12 that's gonna match you because those numbers are stellar. And I think is that sustainable where Tech can share the basketball that well every night?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just, I think you have a one. This season is really going to come down to can you guard people when it counts, and there'll
Yeah.
be some nights when you don't shoot it as well as other nights. But I just think that you're like I'll tell you who loved your win against Utah, where it was like the Ken Palm
Oh
stuff,
yeah.
the points
Yeah.
per possession
Right.
stats, and all the analytics that go into it because the computers are sitting there with a giant smile on their face based on what you did there, and it factors into to what a lot of the net stuff and I mean all that. That's why the computers like you so much because you're so efficient. But I think it is sustainable, and you're playing some high level offenses in this league, and it's just that's why I always say, man, the coaching in this league,
Oh yeah.
the environments. Utah wasn't one of them necessarily, but I think BYU will be. But typically, the environments on the road are just it's like brutal. But yeah, I think Coach Linder's done a phenomenal job with your offense. If I'm just I'll quit beating around the bush about it. I think he's done
Sure.
exceptional work because here's a couple things, Woodman, that I think are fascinating as it relates to what's happening. You you you're really going to JT Toppin on the block and letting him go to work in one-on-one situations a lot.
Hmm.
And I think it's pretty interesting because teams have not chosen to double him because I think if they do, they're leaving an elite 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
And you've got them in a bind. It's like, okay, make a decision.
Yep.
There'll come a time where either JT will see a double team or he'll deal with a one-on-one defender that is as good or better than him, and it won't work. But I think it's fun to watch that because you just fan out those 3-point shooters. You throw it to him on the block, and he hasn't had to look to kick it out yet.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing that you're doing is same premise. When JT isn't in the game, you're playing a 2-man game in the middle of the floor with whoever guard and Federico, and
Yeah.
he's just catching lob after lob after lob after lob.
Right.
So much so that he's hurt his shoulder, or he did hurt his shoulder a couple weeks ago because he's like just hanging from the rim and he's just dunking, dunking, dunking. I mean, he's one of the best percentage-wise field goal guys in the country
Right.
because everything he's doing, he's just
It's
catching
right
it and
there.
hammering it in. But the premise is the same in that, okay, you want to blow this up, you want to hedge it, you want to take it out of my hands. You
Yeah.
can't leave those 3-point shooters. And that's why, as frustrating as Kerwin has been at times, he's still deadly and he's still got a rep. And then you've got Chance and Darion Williams and obviously now Christian Anderson and then Elijah Hawkins, adding into it. So that's been what is, and what's interesting is it's fairly simple. It's not, it's not anything. You're not reinventing the wheel. You are just playing to your strengths, and I think it's pretty fascinating to have watched this. And again, you're going to deal with some teams that take this away, take that away. You're going to have to adjust and all that. But it's been fun to watch you compete offensively so far, and I do think it's sustainable. Yes.
For sure. One more question on basketball. This one is from Brad. It says, Level, in your opinion, right now, is Texas Tech a top five team in the Big 12?
Oh, which sport?
Basketball.
Okay, so we are talking hoops.
We are
Okay, I was
talking
making
hoops.
sure
You can
because
answer
I
it for
don't.
football if you want to, but
Yeah, I know, and I don't know. I was trying to think. I don't know what my answer would have been. I don't think you are. I think you might be right on the outside of that. I think you're in like a 6, 7, 8 range right now, and I don't know because had you beaten UCF and then come beaten and have beaten Utah, then
Mhm.
I'd feel differently about it. But I mean, think about it. It's going to be difficult to beat BYU in front of this raucous crowd. They're very
Yeah.
competitive.
Yeah.
Not to say you can't. It's just going to be tough. You come home against Iowa State. You're on the road against Kansas State. I mean, there's just this not like where you look. I mean, is it going to be uh, crazy if you look up and you're like 2-4 in the league? I mean, that's not that out.
Yeah.
Too
Yeah.
far out of the realm of possibilities there. So yeah, but I'm not ready to say. I think your Iowa States, your Kansases, your Baylors, your Houstons,
Hmm.
and I think probably West Virginia are the top five teams. West Virginia, they got some legit wins in
Sure.
the non-conference, and they also just got one of I mean, the holy grail of
Yeah.
conference wins and one in Lawrence. So,
Yeah. Very surprising there. My last question for you, Level, is if someone offers you 1-1, guarantee 1-1 this week, do you take it?
yeah, I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. And if I could pick it, if you could, yeah, I think I'd probably take the win over Iowa State, even though it's at home, just because I think they're really good. I think that will continue to be a quad one win throughout. I think it's going to be very difficult. Though somebody's going to get these guys, and they'll lose several games. I would say in the league, and I say several. You and I actually, what was this question? Was this a week or 2 weeks ago when we were? Is 15-3? No, wait, hold on. I'm trying to do the math here. What do we say?
15.
15-5 or
I think it was
16 and
yeah,
four?
I think the over under was 14 and a half for the Big 12 champion. So, and you took the high side.
Yeah. But I mean that's going to be the team that, yeah, they're going to test that theory
Yeah.
as long as they stay healthy. I mean, they've got the one of the best players in the conference coming off the bench. I mean, it's very impressive. Again, if they stay healthy, but I'd take
If
that win if I got to pick it, and I'll deal with what Cosmo the Cougar has to deal out.
yeah,
On Tuesday night.
how distracted is Level going to be by Cosmo jumping through fire hoops and dunking the basketball and all
Well,
that?
yeah, which Cosmo? Because there's like six of them, right?
There's
Yeah,
several. There's
yeah.
quite the squad of Cosmos going on. All right, Level. Shifting as we wrap this up, let's go towards some football. Some news announced for Darcel McBath being the corners coach. Coach Green now the safeties coach. That's a split duty. Someone did ask. This one comes from Steve. Says, is there unlimited? It says, help me understand the unlimited coaching assistant coaches. Is that for any position coaches or analysts, or how all does that work?
Yeah, I think they've relaxed the rules. That term is something that people should understand as it applies to everything as it relates to the NCAA. They've relaxed the rules pretty much on everything. Everything we're talking.
Very much so.
All the stupid. You can only have this many people on the court or on the field at the same time. They've basically said, do what you want. The one limitation you're going to have now, because they'll let your analysts, help coach. You can have, I forgot, what is it, like 20 something iPads or Surfaces
Yeah.
during
Yeah.
the game, and they used to limit how many people could wear headsets and all these things. Who's policing this stuff, first of all, and then
Great
two,
question.
who cares? I mean, if somebody wants to to have 40 coaches, then let them. I mean, now granted, I think at some point there's diminishing returns because I think, okay, well, who's in charge?
Yeah.
How many messages are these kids getting? At some point, too much is not good. But
Right.
I think that the one limitation that they're going to, hold on to is how many coaches can get out on the road and go recruit at the same time. However, that's not even as big a deal as it used to be anymore either, because half
No.
the time you just sit there and they just keep coming to you on the portal stuff. So yeah, there you go. But you're allowed to have as many, I think, assistant coaches as you want. You can only have 10 on the road at the same time. But they're about to you're going to see this more talked about too. They're about to say there's not 4 years of eligibility anymore. There's going to be like you just have 5 years, use it how you want. The end. Like we're tired of dealing with the waivers and the did you redshirt and can you just hey, once you start, you've got 5 years. The end, and do with it how you want. So
So that actually has come up. I think they're talking about that today.
yep.
Is that a so is that going to be a blanket thing, or will there still be medical red shirts? Is
I
this
think they're gonna. I think
because
the only way a medical would apply is if you lose multiple years within that 5 years, and you are lose 2 seasons.
okay,
But I think they're going to be a lot more strict on granting a lot of that. I think they're trying to get away from, hey man, he's been here for 7 or 8 years, and now you've kind of phased out of the COVID years
sure,
and all that. But I just don't think that they want to get into. But there will be some medical exceptions, yes. But I think it's gonna like if you just lose a year, they're gonna say sorry, there's no medical available. But I think when you get into multiple years and things like that, that's when what you talk about would come up.
yeah. I mean, it seems to fit. Just make it a cleaner, easier process. You got
It's
5 years to play
easier,
five. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, when you go through it level, it for a freshman or a redshirt player, they can play. I was doing the math on this. I think it's 9 games in a redshirt season. They can play their 4 in the regular season. You got a conference championship game they can play
And
in,
4 playoffs, yeah.
and then 4 playoff games, which is nuts. You could play that many games and still hold on to a redshirt year. So, I mean, with all of that, you might as well just go to 5 years, which does seem like that's. Do you think that's going to happen as early as
Absolutely.
next year?
I think it. Yeah, I don't know when it will be implemented, but there's just not going to be anybody that fights it.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
my
like,
point.
what's the bad part? There's no, this is a win-win. It should have been this way, all along. At some point, they graduated from the red shirt to okay, well, okay. We'll let you play 4, but you still you can't do any more than that. But then then you add the caveat of, but that doesn't count in the postseason. I mean, so what are we doing? Just let everybody.
Yeah,
I tell you this too is that if you're going to limit scholarships,
yeah,
part of this comes out of necessity. If you're I say limit scholarships, limit rosters is what I meant to
roster
say. If you're going to
sizes. Yeah,
limit rosters, you're going to almost need this out of necessity just so you have more to get through in the the season and all the things instead of like okay, well, I don't want to burn his red shirt, so he's not available for the
sure.
whatever. But yeah, that's coming.
Okay, so one more back to coaching. We mentioned Darcel McBath, as a corners coach. Leah asks, will Kirk Bryant be replaced as the quarterback coach, or will the offensive coordinator take over those duties?
Well, like Coach Kitley did, Coach Kitley and Coach Bryant, they handled the offense slash quarterbacks, play sheets, all the stuff, right? And there was others that worked with Coach Kitley in some of these roles too. Trent Vasey, who's actually going to be, I think, the offensive coordinator at Florida Atlantic under Zach Kitley, in name only. Zach will call the plays and everything, I think. But yeah, Coach Leftwich, he'll have other people under him, like
Yeah,
analysts or, yeah, maybe some folks in his, you know, from Texas State or folks that he knows, or,
right.
we'll just kind of see what that looks like. But there'll be others in that role that are more of a dealing directly with Will Hammond and Baron Morton, and that are only worried about certain things, whereas Coach Leftwich would be worried about all the stuff. So anyway, yeah, I just don't know who those people are yet. That's to be determined. But you've got a lot of off the field kind of personnel type roles that you need to fill, in operations and strength conditioning and all that stuff. And those may be in the process of being filled now, but there's most of this the fans don't really care about or even know who these people are. You and I do, but yeah, there's a lot of moving parts at this time of year, not just with assistant coaches.
All right, Level. Well, enjoy the snowy state of Utah. Get back to us safely, and bring a win back, or a second win back with you, if you don't mind.
Okay, all right. If you can hit shots and I think make BYU play inside the arc a bit, and just avoid one of those runs that your building is famous for, you'll
Sure.
have a chance. You'll have a chance in this one. So. We shall see what we get, but back home this weekend against one of the best teams in the country in Iowa State, TJ Otzelberger wearing a medium golf shirt. He'll be on the sidelines, fresh out of the weight room. So be ready, be ready. Yeah, giddy up. I appreciate you dealing with me on the road, Woodman, and thank you for hosting. And we'll talk to everybody next time. Guns up.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, Level. That is Chris Level. I'm Chois Woodman. You've been tuned into the Ask Level podcast, brought to you by Double T 97.3.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.